Hey guys, it's Ajax from Team High Society here, and today we're gonna do a comparison between the RunCam HD2 and the GoPro Session. So after we talk about it, you'll see some side-by-side video that we shot with this quad here, and basically it's got this mount up front, and I just mounted these things side by side so that you can get actual comparison of the video side by side from the same exact conditions, not two separate videos, but same video at the same time right next to each other. So alright, let's get into this first, and let's start with one of my favorite cams here, which is the RunCam HD2, and we'll go over some of the specs about it. So real quick here, let's go and see, the weight. With mini quads, with any quad, the weight is really important. So the documentation says 49 grams with the battery and 35 grams without. So let's check that with my handy scale. And this says 50 grams. However, I do have this little patch of Velcro on the back, which is a couple of grams. So at 50 grams, that's within the spec there. Let's pull the battery out if we can real quick. And 35 grams, it's actually a little under 35 grams without the battery. And you may be thinking, well, what good is it without the battery? But this can be powered through the USB port and a little cable that comes out. You can also use this for real-time video if you don't want to have a flight camera and an HD camera. This will work with both. It has probably the lowest latency of any camera on the market right now. However, I still think it has a little bit too much latency if you're running, kind of a racing style quad and a quick quad. Okay, so it's got a 120-degree field of view. It's got a 4 megapixel sensor in it. It does 1920 by 1440 at 30 FPS. I don't really care about that. At the moment, we're talking about the 1080 market. So this does 1080 at 60 FPS and 720p at 120 FPS. It will rotate 180 degrees, so if it's upside down, that's all good. The dimensions are 66 millimeters by 38 millimeters by 21 millimeters. And one of the other features is it's got this nice little protective bezel around the lens, which may not seem like a lot, but it's something. I've already broken one of the bezels and replaced it. I did a video on that. If you're interested, it was really easy. And I think it was only $4, and I think I got 6 of these. So that's good. Alright, now let's talk about the GoPro Session. Right away you'll notice that I have this little cover on the front because the front of this, while it is metal, got a metal ring on it, the glass is flush with the front, so it's directly exposed to strike. So I just have this little semi-flex 3D printed little bezel on it so that if it hits something, it doesn't crack the glass. I did hit a pole, and luckily it hit it right on the edge and didn't break the glass. Alright, we'll start with the weight here. Website claims 74 grams. This is actually 73 grams. And it has Velcro on it, so it's a little bit underweight compared to what the specs say. The dimensions are 38 by 38 by 36.4, so it's a much better form factor than the old style GoPros. The old style GoPros are, just like a brick going through the air. This is the best GoPro, in my opinion, for mini quads because of its form factor. It also does 1440, but at only 30 FPS. It does do 1080 at 60 FPS. However, one of the other features about this that I really like is that it has 1080 Super View. and it does super view at 48 FPS, and I've never had the 48 FPS versus the 60 be a problem. It's always been just as good, or it's always been good video. Don't get any jello or anything like that. It does 720 at 100 FPS, so again, not quite the 120 FPS, but I don't ever use or shoot any video that high. Let's see here. So let's do some pros and cons of these. Some of the pros of the Session is the form factor. Here's a QAV 210, and as you can see, I have a little 3D printed mount here. This clips onto, and then I strap it in. And if you have a look at that, it's the exact, or pretty much the exact width of this frame. So as you're flying, it doesn't again have that big brick effect going through the air. It lines up to the body. So I like the form factor a lot, and it allows me to fit a camera. Well, I don't have any of the batteries here. I guess I do. A camera and a battery fits pretty much just perfect on the top of this 210. The other pro is I think the quality of video is better on the Session than on this RunCam HD2. Now this is a great camera and I like it. It's my favorite other than the GoPro, and we'll kind of talk about this a little bit. The form factor is what prevents me from using this. But again, back to the Session, the pros are I think the quality of video is very good. It reproduces color well, and it handles light to dark transitions well. Another benefit is Super View. I think Super View is great. It just gives you that really immersive video when you're flying these things. And I really like the button. The way the Session works is it has this small button down here that you can change settings with, but basically once you've set the camera, you just push the button once, it turns on, and it starts recording your last sections, or your last settings, just like that. One button. Push the button again, and it turns off. That's awesome. So I can set this up at home or once, and then when I get out to the field, I just have to push the button. If the light is on, it's good. If the light's not on, then I know it's not recording. Some of the cons. This is quite a bit heavier than this without the battery, and even with the battery in the RunCam, this is still about 20 grams heavier. It's a con because we fly them around on these quads, but it's a pretty tough camera. Like I said, it's got this metal bezel, and it's waterproof without having a case. You can see I've dented the back of this case in a crash and the battery hit it. Anyways, it's a con, but it also means that the camera's pretty tough. It doesn't have a removable battery, which is a downside again because of the weight. If we could power it from the quad, we could save some weight there. And it doesn't have any video out, whereas this, you can plug in the USB dongle on it and power it and also get the live video out. So those are some pros and cons in the Session. And now let's talk about the RunCam HD2 here. Some of the pros are its weight. Again, it's pretty light. Even with the battery in, it's pretty light. It's only a few grams heavier than the old Mobius cams, Another plus is that it's got a removable battery. Not only is that a weight bonus, but if you have a long FPV session or just want to record quite a bit of video, you can switch the battery out and replace it with a charged battery. The cost. This is $60 cheaper than the Session. Now the Session used to be ridiculously expensive. They used to charge $399 for these. That's way too much money. The price currently is $199, and I think it's well worth it. The form factor, I'm going to put this as a pro because it's thin. So when I fly my fixed wing, this can go right on top. The form factor is a plus and a minus between both of these. And the color is a pro. When things fly off, which if you're like me, I can crash anything, and when I crash, things fly off. Finding this little black cube in the grass or in the desert is kind of hard. Whereas this bright orange thing, I don't have to, you know, I could paint this or put a case on it, but this is already the color that I like. Again, we talked about the form factors being a con. I can't really put this on here without it sticking out the front, something fierce. And, you know, again, when I hit something, I'm going to break whatever's up front. You know, we thought about maybe making a mount for the bottom. May still do that. It's just not super conducive to working on these 210 frames or anything smaller, just because of the form factor. And again, that's my opinion. Maybe there's some great mount like on top of the battery or something, but for me the Session was just an easier choice. Okay, I think the video quality is slightly worse on this than the Session. It doesn't do colors quite as well. I think the lens is okay, and I think that the FPS and everything is good. I just think it doesn't reproduce colors quite as well. So that's my comparison between the two. Pros and cons of both. The specs. Again, at the cost of this now at $199, it is a great camera that fits right in line with the 210 frame. It really, you know, or frames of this size. Even the bigger frames, it's got a nice form factor. It really is a nice camera. It's got the GoPro toughness. It really is a nice camera. Flip side is, this is a great camera as well. I pretty much like everything about it. I'll link to some of my other review videos. This has always come out on top. I think that it, you know, at the price point, and even if the price was the same, I think they're very close in many regards. It just depends on the type of mounting that you're going to mount it to. You know, obviously the shapes and the sizes are drastically different. So for your application, either one of these is going to be great. I really have very little bad to say about them, other than they just don't fit with the way I do things. All right, well, that's enough for me yammering on. Let's see some video. Like I said, the video was taken on this quad, which admittedly, after looking at the video from both of these, needs a little bit of a tune. I haven't really played with this for, gosh, almost a year. And with all the new beta flight and stuff like that, man, I really need to reflash this and tune it. But anyways, enough of me yammering. Let's have a look at the video. Once again, thanks for liking and subscribing. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the doobly-doo down below. Thanks again.